Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LPFM.
Connecting Highline and our region.
History, cultural heritage, art, performances, contemporary pop culture.
We collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people.
We want to embrace our differences and similarities.
We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LPFM.
Hi everyone, this is Nancy from the Highline Heritage Museum and welcome back. As always, we have a really cool, unique, special, beautiful lady here with us today. I'm just happy. I'm happy today because I've known Sarah for many years and I'm just excited. Finally, we get to share her story. Why are we doing this project? This project is about connection. It's about inclusion. It's about get to know each other. They're museums. We share a lot of stories, but we want to make sure that we share them beyond the walls of the museum, and so that people can actually connect with each other in many different ways. In the radio, just as a reminder, you can listen to the radio or you can also watch this interview on YouTube and share it as many times as you want to. And so in the meantime, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you, Sarah, for allowing us this opportunity to do this interview with you. What do you think? Are you ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, so tell us, who are you and what you do?
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm very excited to talk to you today. I'm Sarah Samson. I'm currently serving as the Assistant Director of Operations for the Masters of Arts in Museology at the University of Washington. Previous to that, I was the curator at the Renton History Museum for 16 years, which is where I met Nancy. I also serve on the Washington Museum Association board, and I also really like soccer and dogs.
That's true. That's true. I see that. I see the side of you. And so we can start with museums, which that's the area that we connect. Why museums? And then you were talking earlier about, the progression. And so like more museums and what makes you and in the field?
Yeah. So I did not set out to work in museums. Initially, I was expecting to be an archaeologist. I went to the University of South Dakota and was getting an anthropology degree. And while I was there, I spent 5 summers doing archaeological field work. I both did excavations and surveys. And the last 3 summers that I was there, I was working in the same place. I was doing the excavation in Deadwood, South Dakota, where the 1880s Chinatown used to be, which was an incredible experience. We were right on Main Street in downtown, and Deadwood is a tourist town. And so there's basically only one way in and out because it's in a gulch. And so everybody that comes into town went past us.
Wow.
And so we, because it's a tourist town, we had to have somebody on our fence talking and interpreting to the tourists full time. It was amazing. And I know what zoo animals feel like now because there was a chain link fence separating them from us. And it was like they thought we couldn't hear them talking about us.
Oh my gosh.
But that was an incredible experience to get to do that and to get to do it for 3 summers in a row. So to really know the history of the site and get to keep doing it and literally digging deeper and further into it and the history and unearthing those stories was amazing.
So museums.
Yeah.
So how did you start from archaeology? I mean, I was sharing with you, I'm a Indiana Jones baby. I just love that stuff. I mean, if I was not going to be in archaeology, I was going to be a cultural anthropologist. That was my, the one. I'm fascinated by all the cultures and traditions and rituals and differences. And I guess that's another reason why I'm so passionate about inclusion and diversity, because it's just, to me, it's such a beautiful connection in a human being through history. Archaeology is a different element because you really, like you say, you dig in and then you interpret things in a way that maybe has never been interpreted before.
Yeah. I didn't realize we had this much in common because when I was an undergrad, I took every single cultural anthropology course I could. So I was also very influenced by that. Love looking at other cultures and then taking that lens and looking at my own culture. So I thought that was super interesting. I still find that fascinating. But as I progressed through my summers of archaeology, my body did not really agree with it, and I kept getting heat stroke. And each time you get heat stroke, it's worse. I didn't know that, but it is. And the last time they almost took me to the emergency room. And I was down for about a week,
Wow.
just on my best friend's couch, couldn't move, ate instant mashed potatoes and pudding, and like that was it. So I realized like this probably isn't a sustainable future for me,
Yeah.
having to be outside in places where it's this hot. But another thing that I discovered throughout the process was that a lot of archaeologists are driven by the need to be the one discovering something.
Mhm.
And I really wasn't motivated by that. I mean, I thought it was awesome and it was amazing to be along and watch that happen and even to find things myself. But in reality, I just loved everything we found. I didn't care if I found it or you found it. I just loved all of it. And another trait that I was born with is that I am hyper organized and I love to organize things. And so I was more than happy just to take all of that stuff and be like, I will handle it for everybody. I will organize this. I will label everything. And so that was what gave me my segue into museums and realized, wow, I should really find a master's program to go to and pursue that.
Mhm.
And so I did that. And actually, I got my master's. That's how I got out here.
Mhm.
I came for the Master's of Arts in Museology at the University of Washington. Did that for 2 years. And after my first day in classes, I was like, yep,
That's
this
the
is
right
what I'm
place.
doing.
Yeah.
This is where I was meant to be. And yeah, the rest is history.
You sharing this is making me question, do you think as curators, because until the day I die, I think I will always be a curator, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love that too much,
Mhm.
just regardless of the title, whatever. Us as a curators, do you think that is a common narrative that a lot of on our field have that connection with archaeology and anthropology? Because it's not the first time that I cross paths of people that are like, I did this, but then I'm deciding this.
Yeah.
And it is some, and then also the need to like organize and spend time with artifact
Mhm.
or take care of it. It's not just interpretation of it, but it's also the preservation. And then they're quite honest, like my personality, I like to get organized. It is a joy. It's something
Yeah.
about like I actually enjoy like keeping things organized. Now, reality in real life, I might not have that option, when you got a teenager daughter or when you have
Mhm.
a doggy and whatever.
Yeah.
But there is this spotting collections where you can really dive in
Yeah.
and like keep everything the way you want
Mhm.
to. Do
Yep.
you think that you find it as a common narrative for like in a field, like people that have that personality somehow are attracted to the same
Yeah.
careers?
I've come across many failed archaeologists
Mm-hmm.
with the students that I've worked with
Mm-hmm.
over the years, for sure. Lots of them. And I think people go into archaeology for the same reason people go into museums. And there's a lot of overlap
Mm-hmm.
in between that. Yeah, and I think anybody really interested in, history even also, there's, I don't know, yeah, it's a certain type of person that goes into that, and I think a lot of us also, we care deeply about looking at the past, figuring out what happened there, but then also bringing that forward. Why does it matter? You know, let's look at what worked in the past. Let's look what didn't work in the past. What can we learn from it today? And that was the thing I really, really tried to do in all the exhibitions I helped put on in Renton was like, yes, we're trying to educate you about a specific thing that happened in the past, but I really tried to put something in it that made it matter to people today.
Yeah.
Draw some sort of connection between the two.
History, such a fascinating topic. It to me is one of the most scary
Can be.
and fascinating. It's scary because like what is history and who writes history and how do you interpret the specific things and how do you rely on resources that are based on others' personal opinions and so to me is one of the most scary. I mean, for me, if there have been times that I prefer just to do an art exhibit, like here's the art, here's the artist's interpretation, and you can interpret it after however you want to. But with history, there's been many times, well, my mother did not tell me that, or my mother told me something different. And they're like, well, that's your mom, but how do you know your mom actually got it from the right? And they get upset. They're like, how do you, filter what history is in the community, especially when then they crossing all these ideas through years. I mean, one person, well, I know that this happened, and then that person will repeat it, and then another person will have their own interpretation of that. And so to me, it's one of the most scary.
It
And
is.
here we are.
Yeah, in a museum that tells history.
I know, I know this. And so you were from that, archaeology now to museums. You started at the Renton.
Mhm.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I don't think you can do something for 16 years and not love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because even while I was there, my path changed a little bit because I came in there initially to take care of the collection, to organize things, which I was happy to do, loved it. Because I also did my thesis project and internship at the Renton History
Okay.
Museum. So I already had some basis of knowledge and some familiarity with the artifacts and everything coming in there. But yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, as you start any job, there's a lot to learn. And so I spent those first couple of years really learning the history of Renton and figuring out what made Renton unique and what were some of the amazing stories that we could bring forward. And as I spent more time there, slowly over time with the director, Elizabeth Stewart, we transformed the gallery, because the gallery, when we got there, didn't change a whole lot. It was kind of lots of small exhibits that told little bits of history. And so we slowly changed it over the years into have a more dynamic space where we could do programming and then also have changing exhibits. And so at our best, we were doing 3 to 4 different changing exhibits a year in that big gallery. And we still had more long-term exhibits up that were up all the time. But I really enjoyed getting into the exhibit work. And I enjoyed the research, and I wrote newsletter articles also, which was super fun. But the best part about it was sharing it with people. I mean, researching and knowing it myself was fun, but the best part was getting it out there and disseminating the information. And then being out in the gallery and talking with visitors as they learned things or, help to answer their questions or even ask them questions to help them think deeper about what the topic was. I think the best thing anybody ever said to me in the 16 years I was there was I was in the gallery talking to a woman, and we were actually talking about the Renton High School changing their mascot, because it used to be the Renton High School Indians. And obviously the Washington law changed and they needed to change that. And so now they're the Red Hawks. And she and I were talking about that. And she was saying, like, well, it was named after one person, which is true. And the family had not found it offensive. And they, in fact, wanted to keep it the Indians, which is also true. And she said, so it wasn't offensive. And I said, true, that part was not necessarily offensive because the family did support it. However, the way it was depicted on jerseys, in programs, and things like that, that was not always respectful.
Yeah.
And she sat there and thought about it, and she's like, wow, you really just made me think, and you made me change my mind.
Wow.
And I was like, my job, this is the best thing I could have ever done. Like, I quit? No. But I was like, I've reached the apex as a curator. I made somebody think.
No, it does. I love it. I love the opportunity to talk to people and then bringing in elements to things that, they know. Earlier, just less than an hour ago, I was dealing with this group, and they grew up in the area and they know this area really good. And then here I am, they were asking questions and I knew the answers. I was not born and raised in this area, but I still was able to provide some of that insight. And it is interesting, like you said, the ability to share and ability to bring to the table different stories and nobody knew about them. So I know throughout the years you've been having beautiful projects. I mean, throughout the years I've just been witnessing all the work that you've done, and it's always been beautiful. And that's why I like you so much, because I know the work that you've done, and then I know how beautiful and the values that you have behind the work that you do. So we have now the UW, and we can go back to any other area. So it's not like, oh, we are no, we can go back and you define that. But going out with a UW, I know that there's a completely different ball game, because now you're exposed to not just a community, but a new generation who are going to be leading this field, a new generation who's going to be, maybe bringing out new elements into the work that we do currently, and maybe changing things. Obviously, we keep evolving and changing and moving forward. And so, do you like it? And if you do, why?
Yeah, I've been in this position just over 2 years now. And I do love it. It's fun to do something new after 16 years of doing the similar thing. It was a good challenge, a good time to jump into something new. But in many ways, I think it is a continuation of the work I was doing in Renton, because one of the best parts of my job in Renton was working with UW students.
Yeah.
I tried really, that's the program I graduated from. I'm an alum. And as soon as I got established and working, I said, I will host interns, I will host classes. And then I was guest faculty for them. I was teaching a collections lab in my museum for them. So I tried really hard to stay connected because I wanted to give back. I wanted to help teach the next generation, but also it was fun. Selfishly, it was fun.
Yeah.
I loved working with the students and having their new ideas inspire me and just giving them the space to do their thing. I think that's one really special thing about smaller museums.
Yeah.
Is that we are much more flexible and nimble, and we can allow students to really take the ownership of something and do it. Whereas I think that's a lot harder in big museums when there's big departments and committees for everything and channels of approval, and just it's much more complicated. And so we tried really hard to do that. And I love teaching my collections lab, and that's where I really got to know a lot of the students personally. And so then a bunch of them would come back and do internships with me. And then the best part though was when they would come back and do a thesis project with me, because that is just the coolest. I did my thesis project in Renton, and they allowed me free reign to develop it. I mean, I was solving a problem for them, but I was allowed to do the research and own it. And so I really wanted to continue to do that for students. And so, yeah, I loved helping them do that and giving them the space to do that. And so I think now I've just taken another step in that chain. And now I'm the one that's asking museums, like, give us your projects so we can match a student with you. And so it's just I'm still doing the same thing, but I'm just in a different role within the process.
I think that I find it interesting how, we see an opportunity in front of us and then we follow, but it's aligning with the values, it's aligning with what we want, and then aligning with the growth. And I mean, from archaeology to now to talking to students and expanding the different opportunities and expanding the field, it's like you're increasing the view on many different things. And yeah, I agree with you. It's just the same, just hosting interns and some of them requires to be, really have that mentorship role when you're right next to it. Other ones requires like give them more freedom so they can take ownership and then really kick in. But every single person, every single student is so different, and they take the program or the project in their own ways. One way or another, they customize it. So tell me your favorites out of the three, either archaeology or Renton or the UW. Well, tell me a favorite story on, I mean, you already share with the mascot, and it is true. I mean, here in Highline, because, well, we have a lot of those school elements is for that same reason. But something that is like, yes, you already share one. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I'll share one of the students' projects, because that was just so cool to watch them succeed. So in Renton at the time, the company that published Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, they were in Renton. And there's a big community in Renton that plays Dungeons and Dragons and has since it came out in the 80s the first time around. And so for a long time, we had really wanted to figure out a way to do a Dungeons and Dragons exhibit, because we knew that would reach a part of our community that typically didn't visit our museum, and we were a museum for the entire community. So we knew that would appeal to people that hadn't been in yet. Problem was, we had one T-shirt and like 3 photographs in our collection. That was it. That's not a lot to go off of to build an exhibit. However, a UW student who was looking for a thesis project plays Dungeons and Dragons, and she said, I can do this. So we're like, all right, here is your 1 T-shirt and your 3 photographs. And then The other thing we did is we gave her, I think, 2 or 3 people to talk to. One was a friend that I'd met through the soccer community who had lived in Renton. Soccer paid off. He'd lived in Renton his whole life, or most of his life, and had, played D&D in the 80s and was still very involved in the community. So we gave her his name. And then we gave the name of one other person who also was big in the D&D community and actually worked at Wizards of the Coast. And she had been on Renton's board previously. So after giving her those 2 names, things just started to snowball. And she ended up doing 8 oral history interviews. And through the guy that I connected her with, my soccer friend, he was wearing a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt, and he ran into a woman who was married to one of the guys who invented Dungeons and Dragons. And she commented on his t-shirt, and then they started a conversation. And then 2 weeks later, me and the student end up in this guy's house in Bellevue.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, yeah, I got all this stuff in my garage. What do you want? I'll loan you anything. So it was amazing. And I know of D&D. I've only played it a couple times. So, the student was freaking out. Rightly so. But I knew enough to know, like, this is a wild opportunity, and I can't believe this is happening right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she made the exhibit. It was absolutely fantastic. And I will say also, curator thing, we needed a table for the exhibit. So my kitchen table was brought down to the gallery and was in the exhibit. So we didn't have a kitchen table for 3 months.
Wow.
That's dedication.
Oh, that's fun.
But
that is fun.
Yeah, so the exhibit was wildly successful. We had a huge opening party, and then Seattle media actually picked it up. And so they invited us to be on New Day Northwest. And I don't like being on TV. So that was very scary. But also I was so happy for my student. And of course we went there to support her. But that was a fantastic experience. And I'm so glad we took the leap and did that, even though we didn't have the story to begin with, because she went out and made the connections and built the community and found it.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just how things align in a way that it just there. But I think is the willingness and the openness and being open and flexible and adaptable to really like, okay, let's just see what happens and really trying the best we can. There's a phrase out there, I think it was Darwin to say that something about that is not the fastest or the smartest that survives, but it's the one who adapts the most, the best, that actually is the one that survives. And I think that in our field, we need to do a little bit more of that we need to adapt and not just always be into one structure. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, the bigger institutions, and you tap it into that, and you're right, where the smaller the institutions, we have a little bit more freedom because you don't have to go through so many channels. As for the bigger institution, you got through so many different things, and it's a different dynamic. But for the same reason, I'm questioning how flexible they are in evolving and changing and moving forward. And then there's a question for the new generation too. And are they ready to know that there's going to be some resistance in modifying and changing some of these things? It will happen eventually, but it's not as easy as one would like to see those changes. So we've been lucky to us to be in places that allows us to have a little bit more flexibility and being able to adapt to what our communities are asking of us to do. And like that example, that topic sounds so fun. I wish that I'd seen that exhibit. I wish
it was fun.
No, yeah, there's the pop cultural element is something that, history museums, sometimes we don't do that much of the work because we focus so much on the history and those unique stories. But the pop culture element is also a part of us, well, part of the community. So now we still got time. And so we have the archaeology, we have the museum. Now with the new field as an UW, but also soccer. We have the World Cup coming up, and I have not chatted with you since then, but I'm sure you are excited and how you see that as a historic.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, I'll be really interested to see like what Mohai does in terms of. I'm sure they'll develop kind of a collecting plan around that and make sure they get photographs, but also around artifacts
All
and
kinds
things
of
like
things.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things are happening, and if you guys don't know what the World Cup is, because it's a new, the American
Mhm.
culture doesn't really know much about the soccer culture. For us, we call it football.
Yeah.
And
Which
now,
makes more sense.
yeah, because you're kicking with
I
your
know.
feet all the time. And so that's what it is for us. As for you guys in America, and I say you because it's just trying to distinguish that I grew up in this culture of football. The passion is there, and the
Mhm.
views are way higher than all the Olympics combined. I mean,
Yep.
like per an event. And so when you think about summer or winter, the views are higher on the World Cup, and there's a passion.
Mhm.
There's a passion, a crazy passion for this sport. And so yes, Seattle is hosting one of the cities is hosting this because it's going to be divided in many different places. But yeah, it's going to be a historic move.
Yeah, one of my friends, and I haven't fact checked this, and I don't want to spread disinformation, so I'll say
Mhm.
this, but they said in not just in Seattle, but all of the cities in the United States that are hosting it, they're expecting for a total of 14 million people to be coming in across the United States for these games.
Well, not just United States, globally. I
Yeah.
mean, like for us, it's a real the alarm is up here in the South because of the we got the airport, and everything that's going to happen is going to be within 5 minutes from us. I mean,
Mhm.
like everyone is
Yeah.
going to come to this, and then there's going to be a lot of areas where people might not be able to go into the games, but they're still going to be going to the watch parties, and there's still
Mhm.
going to be all these different activities that are taking place, and it's affecting all the way from transportation to the
Yep.
business to this having all these different meetings with the many different sectors, and really drawing the picture out there how impactful that was. It will be just for the South End. I know Seattle will be also a big hit. But yeah, this is gonna be so keep an eye on that one. So
Yeah.
that's happening on July, well, the summer 2026. So we still got 1 year and a half to go before that happens. But that's coming. And you, soccer, how many years you been into soccer?
I started playing in fourth grade. I
Okay.
played all the way through high school, and then took a long break, and I've been playing again for 5 years straight now.
So you're
So
playing right
I
now.
do.
I know that.
I do. I play on Sundays.
Oh, wow. Wow. No, that is so cool. And is your son playing?
He's not right now, but he was playing. Now he's just focusing on his karate.
That's cool too.
Yep.
That's super cool. Women and playing soccer.
Mhm.
What do you think of that?
Well, I was in the right generation that
Hmm.
I followed Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy and uh, kind of all the American heroes that took soccer and really made it possible for all of us, because fourth grade for me was when soccer came to our town for the first time. We It wasn't a thing and nobody knew anything about it. And I also got to give a shout out to my dad because he jumped on and became a coach pretty much immediately. He didn't know anything about soccer. He played tennis. Um, but then at another point, he took over the whole league and managed the whole league because
Wow.
it was going to shut down if he didn't. And he wanted my sister and I to be able to play. So,
Oh,
yeah. So, I mean, my parents were heroes. They piled as many kids as they could in the van and drove across the state all the time for us,
oh.
helping us play.
I think I can feel you. The love that you have for your parents and then that your parents had for you and your
Hmm.
family. Yeah. So I can feel that.
Yeah.
I can feel that the emotion behind, and now as a mom, it's a
Yep.
completely different ball game. Now that we're moms, oh
Yeah. I
gosh.
coached a few times also. Yeah.
See, that's what I like about this project is that when I mean this radio project, because I don't have the capacity to really like, okay, tell me what, because when we see each other, we always have some type of plan or
Yeah.
program, an agenda or
Hmm.
something. But to like the ability to, or the opportunity to like, okay, tell me more, like,
Yeah.
okay, what else is not that common. And so see, another thing that, even after knowing her for many years. So we we are in the area that the demographics are changing, right?
Hmm.
And so it can be impacted by sports, it can be impacted by a field and the museums. Do you think in this region, in the museum field, we are getting there to be more adaptable to the demographics?
I think so. I've been actually attending more national meetings,
Good.
and they're kind of just webinars, but there's breakout rooms where you get thrown in with people from all around the country. Um, and hearing them, I am actually really grateful that my museum career has been in this specific place in Washington. I think that we live in a place where we are allowed and encouraged to do things that is not allowed or encouraged in a lot of other places. We are really do try to put our communities first and try to reach out to everybody, because that community means everybody, not just this section of the community. And I think that we've been I mean, nobody's perfect and we're getting there, but it's been awesome to be a part of that. And it's been so much fun. And I never, as somebody who was originally going to be an archaeologist who was out in the middle of nowhere with not around a lot of people, I've now really swung to the other side of it where I love talking to people about history. And I even love talking to people about how to preserve their family's artifacts, or how to, talking to another institution who's maybe all volunteer run and help them. I love doing that and making the connections with people and using history and artifacts and all of that to connect us.
No, I find it so interesting and cool, and the opportunity to do that. I think that I've always been an introvert, and that's probably why I like the collections.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's like that. But then as time passes and evolves, and then we're in positions now where we push to deal with more people and to really open up. I think that regardless of our personalities, because I will be that little mouse in the library in corner,
Me
just
too.
doing my own thing. But it is, like you said, a joy of sharing those stories is, yes, it is good to have that self-gratification of processing a collection, of finding really cool items. Or like in your case, you were writing those newsletters and just like researching more about that, the detective work.
Yeah, history detective.
Oh yeah, I mean, curators means many different hats. It's not just, and no, it's not that for everyone. One of the exercises that I make some of my students when I'm hosting, they're like, oh, I really want to know if I'm the right person to be a curator. I really want to test it out. Like, okay, we can do this experiment and you tell me how you feel about it. And so go to your kitchen, open your pantry, just get one shelf and try to organize it. If you like that, and if you had the joy to do that, then yes, let's talk about it and come up with the right collection or project to do that. But when they look at me kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what it is that the joy of just, organizing. I'm not even talking about like really diving into the stories or like the being curious about the artifact. It's just about that organic instinct of just doing that work. And it's been one of the most simplest exercise that I do this thing. Okay, I think you're more on the creative side, and I think you like the solitude and you're this, but it probably would be more on this other side. On collections, not necessarily the cataloging or the processing of it. But yeah, this
That's a fun experiment.
well, imagine that. Not everyone will be that excited after it, because it is this idea that, oh yeah, I'm working with this all photographs. Like, yeah, that you have that, but you are not only dealing with one, you're dealing with hundreds and
Thousands.
thousands.
20,000.
So how do you have the
Yeah.
coping mechanisms not to like a lot of the times my parents would say, well, your job is really easy. You just sit down and just I'm like, you don't know, it actually can fry your brain doing this. And it takes a person or a personality or skills or passion or whatever you want to call it, something to really keep at it. So the pantry exercise has filtered a lot of elements for me.
My mom likes to tell a story that I started organizing when I was 2. She, I was her first child, and so it was just me and her. And she would lock me in the bathroom with her so she could shower. And she would just give me the Band-Aid tin and say, here you go. And she could shower for as long as she wanted because I would sit there and take the Band-Aids out and organize them by size, put them all back in, dump them out, do it again a different way, over and over while she showered.
Wow. You were an organic or a real true.
Yeah.
And then that's something that I tell the students, so anyone on a volunteer, like, let's just make sure you're in the right path. And,
Mhm.
because, and it's okay if they say, well, you know what, it's not going to work out for me. And I completely get it. And I don't want to be the reason why their passion dims down collections, but I also want to be realistic. Like, okay, it does take a stamina
Yeah.
and then breathe in and breathe out. And the concept of
Mhm.
you might not ever be able to finish this project at all if it takes, thousands or
Yeah.
even millions.
Or if it's never done. I mean,
Then it's always going to be.
because in my work in Renton, I chipped away at it for a really long time. But I I knew it was never going to be done. And I knew that because there were things we started to get to where it was like, we've already done this once and now we're like upgrading it again. And so it really never ends. And you have to be okay with that. It's
Yeah.
just, you have to accept that you're there to make it better for the next person to follow behind you. You're there to do what you can. And that's why I really liked having a checklist of projects because then you can see some visible progress. Like, yes, I did get this done. Even though it will never all be done, we did this chunk.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest for people to understand is that as much as our instinct is telling us to organize, we don't get the satisfaction to say it's completely done.
Yeah,
It
it's never
completely.
done.
And so I don't know, but I think I read an article many years ago about one of the most stressful jobs out there. And one of them was, I was very surprised by reading this, is a librarian, only because of the stress of no ever seeing the project completed.
Mhm.
And it's just a stress because you put so much effort and you can speed up and you can like be super focused, but it still would never have that gratification is completed. But you're right, you can break apart that big project and it just make it in a smaller, and then you can really see, the progress. And anyway, so we got 5 minutes. 5 minutes. So any cool projects that you see the students working on, there's something you would like to share that's happening. You can also share the website of the program, anything.
Yeah. For the program, if you just search University of Washington Museology, that's us. Find us right away. And I think, we're one of the coolest projects, I think, again, is working with students on their thesis. And so in either late January or February, I'll be sending out a request for proposals of any museum in the area who wants to pitch a project that a student could work on for their thesis for next year. The students are currently working on theirs for this year. And we had a really great response last year. We had way more museums submit than we had students. And so, which was great for the students because then they could really find something that was their passion and something they really wanted to dig into and excel at. So that was really great. But yeah, we're looking for any institution and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it. If you haven't worked with us before, I have a lot of experience on the other side of it, being the host side as a museum. And so I really try to use that to explain the process and make sure that it's a good fit for everybody. I'm just continually excited to see what our students do. Last year, the students that just graduated in June, one of our students did a really fantastic project with the Seattle Cemetery about interpreting cemeteries and treating them kind of more like outdoor museums. It was so cool. I was always fascinated by cemeteries, both as a kid and then in my work in Renton. And so I loved her project.
Wow, no, that is. There is conversations here in the South with the cemetery in SeaTac, the Hillgrove Cemetery, and has many different layers, and it's interesting, the job. So anyone can find you, just going to the UW Museology program. You like to share anything about the soccer? Where to find you if that you're looking for more women to join you?
Yeah, I play with the Sounders supporters group, the ECS Pub League. And so it's a super fun group of people. And I think even if I didn't like soccer, I would just like hanging out on Sundays with this group of people. Most supportive, happy group you could ever be with. And There's two different divisions. There's like the serious soccer players who are competitive, and then there's classic league, which is what I play in. And we welcome beginners. People who have literally never played soccer before. We want to help you learn. And it's fun. We focus on the fun and helping people develop the skills that they want to develop. And it's great.
Well, you're an inspirational. You're a very inspirational person, and I like that. And
Thank you.
I always enjoy your company for many different reasons. But it was cool to learn today that there's some of the common ground that we have.
I knew I liked you.
Yeah, me too. I knew I liked you for a reason, so it's good. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you can join us next time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Our Highline Voices, 106.5 KQWZ LP FM. We envision ourselves sitting at a round table where no one is the leader and stories are heard respectfully, regardless of gender, age, sexual orientation, disabilities, or ethnicity. Our mission is we collect, preserve, and tell the stories of the Highline region and its people. We want to extend our mission outside the walls of the museum. Our Highline Voices represents us all, honoring our past, celebrating our present, and uniting to cultivate our future. This project allows us to reach out to demographics who might be unable to visit the museum. People with disabilities, low-income families, people who don't trust museums, and more. In partnership, we are launching a locally programmed new radio station at the museum, featuring recorded and live Highline's heritage, history, culture, arts, and more. Are you interested in sharing your story? Email director@highlinemuseum.org.